Hey, it's Bob Simon taking a break to tell you about CallRail. CallRail is a product that my firm uses, and what CallRail does is it plugs into your phone calls with your intake and with your clients to record those phone calls as real-time transcripts so you can get intelligence, and with the Attorney Share plugin, you can actually, in real time, be able to send a referral out through the marketplace to find the best match, all made possible with CallRail being plugged into your firm's intake with real intelligence. CallRail. Welcome to this episode of the Justice Team podcast on the Justice Team Network. I'm your host, Bob Simon, and today we're going to be talking about some very important issues in Southern California, but now across the nation, and that's about immigration, the rights of those people affected. And we have on the Cynthia Santiago. How are you, Miss Santiago?
I'm good. Chaotic times, but, good spirits.
Yeah, and I know you do a lot of media, a lot of interviews. People reach out to you because of your knowledge in the space and being boots on the ground and for helping. How do people reach you, first of all? I'm sure you have a lot of people reaching out to you, but how do they find you?
Yeah, so I always suggest social media. Abogada Santiago is the handle, ABOGADA, Abogada Santiago. But also people just call our office or they reach out through texting us at our office as well. We try to be very present for different needs because if I can't handle it, I know somebody that will be able to.
Yeah, and I think that's important because we do the same thing. I know we're big on finding the best warrior for that specific issue. I don't do any immigration, so I just literally will text Miss Santiago here. But, one thing, and I think people need to recognize is, you're a mom, you're balancing life. Two of your kids are outside the studio right now. It's summer break, but you still have to fight every day.
Yeah, I think that since I opened up the practice in 2012, my mission has always been fighting for my community because of the impact that it's had growing up with immigrant parents and the community I was raised in. But also, there was a big component of why I opened up my own firm is to do know your rights. Because even if we didn't have an immediate threat in our face back then in 2012, 2013, I wanted my community to leave with information and knowledge on how to protect themselves.
Yeah, and let's talk about knowing your rights. Right now, mid-June 2025, a lot of chaotic times. What are you telling people out there? What are some suggestions you have for folks that either are employers or people that may be affected?
Yeah, it really is a complicated issue because while I appreciate the know your rights information that we're hearing so much in social media and in the news, a lot of these things are not a one size fits all. A lot of people have so many different factors in their case that it's important that if they can reach out to an attorney or a nonprofit and get an individualized assessment, then they're going to know what they can do on the spot at that moment, or they can try to do affirmatively now while they're not under any risk and they can file something to kind of get ahead of this, which is what I've been telling folks. You need to know where you stand. If you have previously been deported, then asking to see a judge isn't going to happen because you have an order against you already. So you're under a different process of being expeditedly removed or reinstated. So there's just so many layers of complications with these cases that that assessment is the first step. The know your rights advisors are good, general concepts, but there's nothing, that will, there's nothing better than to have a person and an attorney. That's what I do at the end of every consultation is we do a know your rights prep. Okay, if you're picked up, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? What are you going to argue to see? Because you're not going to have an attorney there. You got to argue for yourself. And I want each of my consultations clients to leave knowing okay, I'm going to be able to handle this if this happens. And worst case scenario, this is going to happen. And my attorney then will be called and then she'll respond and come and support me.
Yeah, so let's go through. Do you have those general blocks of categories of folks from the asylum seekers to perhaps kids to folks that may have had a deportation issue or folks that have been just waiting in line for a decade?
Yeah.
What are
or
the
two.
Or two.
Decades.
But let's talk about that first.
Yeah.
We hear on social media all the time, well, my parents came here legally, so these people have to do it too. And now you got to go.
Yeah. Then we would start with the concept of our immigration system from its inception in the even in the 1900s, you see the Great Wave where millions of people were allowed in because of the conditions that they were fleeing and their country. And, we're in a position where our immigration laws were very open borders. And then in the 80s and 90s became more about reform and control and punishing folks. And so that's, I think, the principal issue is that understanding the history of immigration law, it has not always been about getting in line. It's been about, opening up the doors and people come
and that's been,
seek.
and people don't realize in the last decade or two, it's been very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people that have been here paying taxes, members of the community that have been just waiting in line for 20 years.
Yeah, I just did a presentation with a large organization, executives and whatnot, and employees, and I went through the history. And the 1980s was the last time Congress actually did an immigration like amnesty type process, and then we get into 1996 when Congress did do the Illegal Immigration Reform Act, and so that is one to punish individuals who enter the United States without permission.
So it's 1996 on. It's been
Yes, it's been more about control, punishing, consequences, and it's going to continue to get that way unless we make immediate changes to our immigration system.
Yeah, and that's what, and it's, we see that. I've seen the video of Ronald Reagan who granted amnesty, and to me, it's just, why would you not just say, hey, if you've been a member of the community, you've been paying taxes, you've been an upstanding person, why not try to find a path to citizenship for those folks that are contributing so positively to everybody? Why would that be so hard?
Yeah, well, the wave that we have now under this administration doesn't have that perspective of seeing individuals that are others, seeing individuals of diverse backgrounds as as people that deserve, or that people that are humans that have a family, that have done a lot to contribute. This administration doesn't see that in individuals. They see them as criminals, and they have a whole nother perspective, mostly having to do with the southern border and who's coming. And so I think that's the reality of it, that we have to just also acknowledge that this administration does not see the immigrant community the same way. They see them as lesser.
So are people getting racially profiled?
Yes.
Please describe.
Yes. So, simply driving and out in public, or being in a location that's very open, like the car wash workers, the day laborers at the Home Depot centers. The simple, the approach is, the simple way to describe it is that they're looking at folks that look of a certain race, ethnicity. Latino, for example, has been the majority of individuals picked up.
But it's not like they're seeking a specific person. It's not like they're saying, "Oh,
they have no idea this person's background," and that's why unfortunately, citizens were getting picked up. This just happened close to us here in the South Bay.
Oh, I just wonder. I mean, if you could explain to people, like I hear folks say, back Midwest, East Coast, that doesn't happen. They're not picking up people that are here illegally. They're only getting criminals.
Yeah. I mean, that was
true or not true.
That was the slogan during the campaign, and once he came into office, and we know there's certain individuals in that office that are very vocal about who they should be enforcing immigration laws against, and who they're not touching. But the reality is that it's the situation that's happened in LA is a very detain them first and then ask questions later.
Wow. But I mean, are they allowing due process through this?
There's so much going on with once a person is detained. I don't think they had a plan or strategy. Like, they don't even have places to detain
first,
folks.
ask questions later.
Yeah, detain first, ask questions later. What we've been seeing is people are getting detained and being put into the immigration, the immigration offices, where they're not equipped to house people overnight. So they're sleeping on the floor. They're not being fed properly. And then they're trying to determine where to send people that have bed space for them. And so a lot of individuals from LA are in El Paso, Texas. They're in Florida. They're in other states.
Really?
There was about 2 or 3 days. A lot of families couldn't find their family member, and we were able to locate them in another state. Because it creates chaos, so that then they don't have access to attorneys.
Yeah.
because they're also now in another state. They don't have access to their family as easily, and it degrades their mental state to want to fight the case.
And I mean, and let me guess, these are private prison centers that are also benefiting bigly
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
detaining folks.
Yeah, we trace back to billions of being made from the detention centers and opening up new contracts. But specifically, there's a agreement called 287G. It's a contract that local law enforcement agencies can make with the federal government so that they can be housing people that are detained. So my good friends, a lot of good friends that cover investigative work, they've covered these stories of when a new contract is open. It's public information, and you're starting to see, when they get approved, and they get money. They get money. Local law enforcement agencies in states like states way far away from Los Angeles, and that's what happened in Glendale recently as well. Glendale had a grandfathered contract with the federal government to house folks, and then there was public outcry, and it was canceled.
It was canceled. I saw that.
Yeah. So, but this is not going to happen in some random city in Texas or Georgia. Just locations where some of the individuals are ending up.
Yeah. So they're trying to financially benefit with their strategic partners of where they're sending people wrongfully or not detained. Just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I mean, also, like we've seen it before in one of the folks you were mentioning, Stephen Miller, who used to be a professor of yours.
No. We used to be classmates.
Classmate? You were classmates with Stephen Miller? Oh, I was going to say professor. Ugh. But
So I went to Santa Monica High School.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know him in middle school, but that's where a lot of people believe that this started, this, historical mental campaign of wanting to promote a society that was assimilated, that didn't celebrate diversity, that everyone had to be a certain way, and English only, things to that.
yeah, I've seen.
effect.
I mean, you've seen videos of him in high school saying that they should be cleaning our food.
I was on stage at the
Really?
same time. Yeah. So I ran for student body president. He was running for Speaker of the House, which was unfortunately, that the articles didn't specify that. But I was running for student body president. He was running for Speaker of the House, another position. So we were all on stage getting ready to do our speeches, and ours was the last one. So I heard that speech. The entire crowd of students were like anywhere from 9th graders to 11th graders booing him for that, and he was taken off the stage.
Well, just tell everybody what happened.
He simply was like, he was being who he was on campus. That's why I wasn't surprised that something like that, it was not approved previously. He went off and did his own statement as to, why should we pick up after ourselves if we have janitors to do this?
I mean, I've heard some horror stories, but.
And I had classes with him. I don't remember every particular detail because obviously high school was a long time ago, but I had interactions where, as someone that was involved in my student body in my campus, always, doing promoting diversity events and cultural awareness events and promoting, just people's mental, social justice issues that, a lot of the students embraced. He was, very limited. There wasn't a lot of people that shared that belief. It was a very small, it was him and maybe 5 other friends that shared that belief. And they were trying to promote, that assimilation, English only. He highly criticized the welfare programs, social services programs, criticized affirmative action. He criticized a lot of the things that are good for our community, our social well-being. And I ended up being the first Latina student body president of my campus.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And
So he probably has it out for you.
No, he doesn't. he was like this since middle school. Is what has been.
And I've seen the
criteria,
speeches where he's like, "Get the quotas up. You know where they're at 7-Eleven. They're at Home Depot. Go get them." I mean, this isn't like the campaign promise of going to get criminals. I mean, true or false? Are they out there? The folks that they're picking up, the people that you're helping, are these hardened criminals that we're here?
Yeah, I mean, the latest statistics I saw was 10% of the people that were picked up had a criminal history. But but in their agenda and their campaign, coming to the country without permission is the criminal aspect.
That's it. And that's not even a criminal charge. It's civil.
Yeah, it's a civil issue, but that's what the campaign and the the motive out there, that what they're pushing for the community. I mean, I've never seen an administration do so much social media and so much media
Well, it's called propaganda.
commercials. Yeah. And that really is to incite this fear and terror into communities. And we're not going to take it. And we've seen that the community is out there.
Now we know why they've been doing the DEI thing, where they're saying they're taking your jobs. This is all a big lead in as a scare factor to tell people things that just aren't true. Like, I don't see people lining up to go cook in the kitchens where they took the cooks. I don't see people lining up to go to the warehouses. I don't see people out on the fields where the migrant workers are. Nope.
Yeah. And then that's the other thing too. Like we do have a narrative of like, these workers or these people are taking your jobs and they're taking our system and they're abusing of our system and whatnot. But we also have to understand, like, we have a huge majority of folks that are foreign born that live in the country, entrepreneurs. The DACA recipients were essential in the pandemic situation. A lot of the DACA students were workers in the pandemic situation. So it's our role in society as children of immigrants or immigrants is threatening to them as well. It's not just the farm workers and our day laborers that are doing the grit work in our society, but it's like we are also a threat if you have a degree, if you have some type of a
and that's because they teach you it's like didn't earn it, quote unquote. I say now they think anybody that is of a certain color that they didn't earn the job that they got to. It's crazy. That's what they put in people. And I don't think people realize how many healthcare workers are undocumented
or foreign born.
A lot. And I mean, from physicians to nurses to people that are taking care of our elderly and our children. Yeah. It's a lifeblood, and people just do not realize it.
My mom was a home care worker. My mom was a nanny. My mom did that work in taking care of others. And I think that if we change our narratives to show more visibility of who are the immigrants in our country and what we do, then I think that would open up also people's eyes, because I think that all this spreading of an image of someone in a certain way is what really there's people in our United States. We have to understand there's people in the United States who have never seen somebody of certain background, undocumented parents, immigrant parents. Like they've just never seen somebody to understand what their background and history and how much they contribute.
So what can lawyers do that are watching or listening? How can they get into help if they don't do immigration, they're not doing criminal defense, maybe they're in another state? How can they help?
Yeah, so I mean, it's just educating yourself on the immigration situation, assessing your own client base. I've been talking to a lot of personal injury firms, and just how to assess your clients, like where they stand in the immigration picture, and not that you're going to necessarily give them a consultation, but just know where they and their family are, so that if they are vulnerable to be picked up and they have a court case or a deposition, that you're also protecting them as a whole, in a holistic way, right? And their families. I've spent the past week speaking to like at least 150 of my clients and understanding who's missing work, who's not able to go to leave their home.
Yeah, I saw you had a post where you can actually donate so that people can stay home if they feel like they're going to go get picked up at work or even church, right?
Yeah, thankful for Jose from Easy Leans, who's like reached out, and we both kind of just took the lead to try to help as many folks as possible. He's helping a lot with that, and a lot of people are jumping in, which is inspiring. A lot of people want to help out somebody that they know is.
So how do people watching or listening, should they just reach out to you to be put in touch with just helping folks so they don't have to feel scared of getting detained illegally?
Yeah, I mean, people can reach out to me, and then Jose from Easy Leans and I are talking and trying to match up a family to someone who is willing to support them. We're not really posting about all this too much either because they are put in a vulnerable position, and we're trying to make sure that we take care of them, and they're open to it. But he has received the calls, and I've sent him the calls, and he's people are so scared to leave their home and to go, and they don't know how they're going to get through the month. Another organization I work with a lot is called Mi Cielo. They work with a lot of indigenous immigrants, indigenous undocumented community, and the effort there has been to deliver grocery boxes and to also help folks with any needs that they have for the month to get through the month for their family.
Wow.
So,
and I know you have, when we talked on
Yes.
Sunday, you had pulled together, do you have a group of community of lawyers that are like-minded, that you guys are trying to talk to each other, make sure that everything's moving forward?
Yeah, in this time, we as immigration attorneys are receiving a lot of the secondary trauma, but also personal trauma. Like we've been through experiences of deportation, maybe in our own immediate families or loved ones, and so the weight is a lot. And so on Sunday morning, I previously had spoken to a group of us, and I said, well, let's just do a Zoom check-in. And all of us just tap in with each other and check how we're feeling, what we can do to support each other, and how we can link up. And if I can't take a case up north, you can step in and support each other with that. And so I think that's essential for our communities, is that we also take care of ourselves so that we can keep fighting back and be rested. So I also, did go to the boxing this weekend with my husband because my family was like, you need to go and sleep.
Yeah.
Because it was like a week of not really sleeping and not having a sit down meal just because it was back to back.
Yeah, and I encourage all lawyers out there anybody that calls your office, if they have an issue, get them quickly to an immigration lawyer so they
Yes.
can raise their hand. I know on Attorney Share, we waived all fees for that, so people can easily just automate going directly to somebody that can help. One question I had, we're hearing a lot about the kids and what's happening to the kids and foster kids. And again, people just want to know, can I donate money somewhere? What can I do to help? Like, can you give any advice to folks like that?
Yeah, I would also just make sure you kind of look at the organization and their history, and that they're an organization that's been around for many years, and the work that they do in the community. One of the organizations that I've worked with a lot over the past years is IMDEF, Immigrant Defenders. They're based here in LA. But we got to be careful as well that we're working with organizations that are doing the on the ground work. A lot of my friends are at IMDEF. They're either
Is it
at
MDEF?
IM Defenders. IM Defenders.
Oh, okay. IMM Defenders.
Yeah,
Just for the
IMM,
captions
yes,
later on the
yes,
show, make sure we
yes.
nail that one.
And so they, they're at the detention centers right now. They're talking to families. They're stepping up for the kids. A lot of the organizations also were representing kids that were unaccompanied, and they've taken a big hit right now with those services because the kids are also being put back into proceedings. Their
Another
cases
trauma
are being,
for these kids.
Yeah.
Come on. They finally found probably a safe place with a foster family or somewhere. Now it's ripped out again.
Yeah. And then we're also seeing this in immigration court. The last number I looked at was that 3.7 million cases are backlogged in immigration court across the U.S. And they recently started to do this wave. The DHS attorneys started copying, pasting, mass producing motions to recalendar cases that have been sleeping under administrative closure for 10 to 15 years. And they're doing this in an attempt to then not be able to locate, the attorneys either not be able to locate their clients or the clients having moved. And so now there's going to be a hearing set and the person is going to miss it because they didn't get their notice. So they're doing this other effort that just started about a week and a half ago.
That's so disgusting.
So that I flew back from Nevada to be able to file emergency opposition motions because
That's just sad.
they're just trying to do anything possible to meet the quota.
Yeah, just to meet the quota. It's
And
not
then
about
that way
criminals,
when-
it's about quotas.
It's
That's all.
about that quota, so then that way they can continue their campaign trail and say, look what we did while we were in office.
Yeah, and then look at all the money we funneled to our friends at the private detention centers that are also donating to our campaign, blah, 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 blah. It's just,
Yeah, it's a circle. It's like it's a whole mix up, and unfortunately, like our community is at the forefront of this, our undocumented community. But I'm also inspired to see how many people are stepping up and finally talking about immigration, because for many years we continue to leave immigration on the back end of the list. We have other issues to talk about. We have other things. No, we need like a real good conversation and actual like legislation and changes to our immigration system that will include these families.
we sure hope so. Well, Cynthia, thanks for coming on. Big fan of yours, and you're really like up there changing things. And well, thank you for watching and listening to this episode of the Justice Team podcast. You can reach out to @Miss Santiago on Abogada Santiago.
Yeah, Abogada Santiago, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
I almost gave your email away. We were close.
It's fine.
Yeah, well, thank you for watching, listening. Cynthia, always a pleasure.